Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I just need a sip of coffee for a second. The mug says I like big books and I cannot lie. Got it at Target. If I have a consumption or overconsumption problem, it's probably mugs. I'll have to check myself on that. But for now, I drink out of a green mug and I'm feeling some kind of joy. This is my little treat. And I'm about to tell you about a little treat. Well, it's a big treat. It's a book. It's a big book. So as part of my list for fall of what I have been reading, I chose to pick up Gideon the Ninth. This bad boy, bad girl, was a mistake. But why? Because I love it. Because this was one of like 10 to 12 books I'm hoping to read this fall, like Halloween era, and I loved this book so much that I just want to keep reading. But I have other books on my TBR I wanted to take care of first, but this story has my heart. So today we will be talking about what I loved about it, kind of what you can expect from it, and what I learned from it as a creator, as a writer, without getting into spoilers. Promise. I promise. We will not get into spoilers. The only spoiler is that I love this book. Gideon the Ninth, the first book in the Locked Tomb trilogy by Tamsin Muir, is so good. And I'm going to set it down so I stop like making noises into the microphone. So this book is, how to describe the book? What does the cover say? Lesbian necromancers in space. There's also a sort of haunted house and these eerie gothic vibes, also with space stuff, and it's like sci-fi fantasy. Pretty well combined, I think. The magic system is very cool. It's necromancy based, but there's so much to it. I love being in this world, reading this book. Tamsin Muir is a very good author. Sometimes it's wordy, but it's like I'm here for it. I learned new words. It never felt pointless. It was establishing a mood. And maybe I'm biased just because I loved it so much, but I'm like, she could do no wrong. I mean, she can do wrong, but like, as an author, she's good. She's good. So we follow Gideon. She is from the Ninth House. Sort of, there are different houses of, like, in power. There are 9 of them. They are all brought to this place or called to this place in the attempt and desire for them to achieve some sort of status with their god. And as I'm explaining it to you, I'm realizing how much of this world is so much just throwing you into the deep end without really explaining everything. But I think that that is something that's done very well. There's a certain style that some people don't like where genuinely you don't know what's going on and you just have to trust the author. The magic system feels like Tamsin Muir lived there. Like that she experienced and has experience with this magic system. Like she's witnessed it firsthand. There's a sense of mystery to this book that doesn't feel too aimless. Like I said, I won't be getting into spoilers. We follow Gideon. She is basically a master at a two-handed sword. And we follow her as she's thrown into this mystery. And while she isn't stupid, she's a little bit out of the loop as to what is going on. She's not the most scholarly person, I would say, but she's observant about people. And we get to observe the world through her that way. While she also has a pretty deep understanding of like the kind of thing that can exist in the world. So she's familiar with necromancy, even though she herself is not a necromancer. So I loved the mood, I love the atmosphere, I love the characters in this. There are a lot of characters, and sometimes I had a bit of a hard time following, but thankfully the characters are listed at the beginning of the book. Very helpful for me to remember who belongs to what house. Obviously, Gideon the Ninth and Harrow from the Ninth House makes sense to me, but everyone else I was like, let me keep up. But I loved all the characters. Not to say that all the characters were lovable, but I loved all the characters, and as an author was taking notes. And because there is this mystery aspect, there's a lot that you can't always expect. I found the twists and turns to be really, really well done. And in this sci-fi fantasy combined world, there are real stakes that have you invested and build up really well. Gideon has a pretty strong sense of humor, and there is a sense of immaturity to it, but it's intentional, and crudeness to it, That's also intentional, but it's handled so well and written so well that I think it deserves its place. And if that's not like what works for you, I think that's acceptable and fine. Disclaimer here, you may not respond to this kind of story the way that I have, but I want to make a case for why I think it's effective and why I do not think in any way that this is bad writing, because the character is funny in a very serious world. I was thinking about making this video around the time I watched a different video from a different YouTuber. His channel is Local Script Man. His name is Lucas. Very helpful advice, not just for scripts, but for stories in general. And he was talking about, in this video, tone, and if tone should, by some rule, stay consistent in a story. Now, his argument is no. You can see it in his thumbnail, and I will link the video down below because it's very good and very simple. No, tone does not need to stay consistent throughout a story. That's not a requirement for story. Yet we often talk about the consistency of tone. And we could get into it. I think often people are confusing, not necessarily confusing, but not recognizing the difference between tone and promise, and that an author can promise something to a reader, but they can make those promises and they can take you on twists and turns that still fulfill those promises. I think that Tamsin Muir does that really well with this story. So definitely check out that video. Like I said, I'll link it down below. It's very, very interesting. And I want to talk about, for this book in particular, why tone does not need to be consistent and why characters do not owe us severity or humor, but not both. I will say I'm a person who loves humor in stories. It is kind of how I deal with life, probably to an unhealthy extent. It's how I go through haunted houses. Just crack jokes the whole way through and you will feel better and it will help you dissociate through the terror. That's my advice, at least. So you might have different tastes than me. You may not like just like silliness in stories. There's a similar issue people have with Brandon Sanderson's works, that sometimes the humor of his characters is all the same and kind of goofy and silly, and some people say middle schooler, and for some characters it works really well for them, and for others I would agree that like he could branch out a little bit more in the humor department and like experiment with other types of humor. A lot of the criticism of humor in stories is that it feels out of place or it takes you out of the serious moment and like makes you realize that you're watching a movie or reading a book. A lot of people critique the MCU for this particular problem, and I don't blame them. Basically, cracking a joke in a serious moment kind of ruining the tension of the serious moment or the care that we have for the characters. It can sort of feel like you're in the Truman Show, like you are invested in these characters, and then the character is like, knee slapper joke, sarcastic comment. And it's just like, you feel like you are being like pranked. You feel like you're being betrayed a little bit, I would say. And I think that's why people get so upset by it, because it feels like a betrayal of your emotional investment. Local script man Lucas in his video mentions that maybe it's not so much that they're making a joke, but that they're making bad jokes, and I don't disagree with that either. Big side disclaimer, I laugh at those jokes. I love the MCU for what it is, and yes, at the same time, sometimes I do feel betrayed because I'm getting invested and then a joke is made and it messes with my connection to these characters. But I bet we can all think of stories that make us laugh and crack jokes that can also make us cry and don't steal the heart of the thing for us. But not all stories are super funny or super serious. A lot of them can be very successfully both. Where the MCU might fail with a really cheap, sarcastic comment in the heat of battle or an emotional conflict, other stories, like, for example, Fleabag, handle humor really, really well. What I love about Fleabag, and what gets me right in my heart about Fleabag, is that you will be riding along with the story, laughing so much of the way, but because we've set up real character connections, a solid main character to follow, real emotional stakes, real human issues we can relate to. We've set all that up, and the jokes carry us through, and they help us open up and relax. And then the emotional part comes in. And it's not unexpected, it's not out of character, and it fits with the story that is being told. Of course, Fleabag, she would make a joke in a serious moment and also turn at the camera and speak to you, because that is how she communicates, that is how she works. Because sometimes things are funny in the midst of other horrible things that are not so funny. A lot of the things that happen in the book Gideon the Ninth are not funny, are really kind of devastating or powerful or intense, and I can still laugh in a moment. The way you laugh endearingly at someone you love making a joke during a rough time that they're going through, because that is how they communicate. So, Gideon's sense of humor, a little sarcastic, a little bit out of the loop, definitely crude and occasionally immature and bitter even, but this is very in character for her. What else do we know about her character without major spoilers? She's brave, she's full of heart, she wants to be included, she actually gives a crap about other people in a way that you feel like maybe she doesn't have to, but she chooses to. She makes choices, which is huge. She makes actual choices relevant to what she wants and what she feels. People claim that this humor and that these jokes are out of place in such a moody, grim story, but I would not have cared so much about the story if Gideon wasn't so funny. I really can't imagine a story about Gideon where she's not cracking a joke, even in the most serious of times. I think a good joke lands well when the character is understood, and Tamsin Muir understands who Gideon is. She is not just some joke machine, she's not just some sarcastic 19-year-old who doesn't give a crap about anything. She is a solid, well understood character who may not know her place, but whose place is known well by the author. In some stories, the tone kind of melds with the main character, and in other stories, it's like an omniscient presence seems to hang over everyone like an observant god. Some of my favorite stories manage to be a bit observant and informative about the world, and in a way loving toward the character, even in their flaws. It's like we're watching Tamsin Muir tell us about people that she cares about and knows very, very intimately. And so the characters make jokes that they would make. If you want to put a joke in a story, just tell the joke the character would tell. Don't tell the joke just you would tell. She has made them tangible people. And sometimes when a mannequin of a character makes a joke, you don't laugh because you don't know what that character would say. You don't know what they would joke about. The character is not a vessel for the joke you want to tell. The character is a kind of snapshot of a person you want us to understand. And if that character would make a joke at a certain point and it feels believable, then the author is fulfilling the promise to you. They don't need to promise tone, but I think it is important to promise some reasonable expectation of how a character would behave. Their responses to things and their reactions to things can become tangible when you understand who they are and when you write what they would say and write them doing what they would do in a particular scenario. This book was not a vessel for bad jokes, it was a vessel for an entire story and an all-encompassing human experience with a person that I don't know but have come to love because I love characters. I love it more and more the more I talk about it. But if you want to have humor in your story or mess with the tone a little bit, teach us who the characters are, help us observe their growth in the world, and make their actions and the things that they say believable. Make them tangible. And even though I don't relate directly to Gideon, she feels like a person I could know because the author knows her and knows how she would react. So maybe immature, crude humor does not work for you, and that I can actually genuinely respect. But to say that the humor doesn't fit the tone at all is to say that there is some rule about the tone. Maybe you just wanted an eerie, haunted book about necromancers, and you got humor you weren't expecting and didn't like. But my argument is that this book can teach a lot about creating a character who is believable and creating a world that you can invest yourself in and loving those characters that are up in that world and laughing along the way and maybe crying too. So without further spoiler hintage, I'm gonna tap out. It's getting a little dark, which means my light is making me look like a ghost. I'm not a professional. I am kind of a bit of a rambler. You could probably call me a professional rambler. I love this book. I love its many tones, and it does have many, and I make the argument that that's okay. That it's okay for it to be funny in the thick of the darkness and the mystery and the sadness. There is so much care given to these characters that I think we could all take several pages worth of notes, as I have done, from Tamsin Muir, the author of Gideon the Ninth. So please check out this book if you feel any bit of an interest. If you have read this book, I'd like to know your thoughts. Please careful with the spoilers in the comments. At least give a warning if you're going to spoil something. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you're having a wonderful Halloween season. If that's not your vibe, I hope you're having a wonderful fall season. May the seasonal depression keep its distance, and I wish you luck in all your endeavors, especially where stories are involved. Salutations. I will see you guys later, I guess. Bye.